This video is brought to you by Nebula. The Labour Party, when in government, has a long tradition of working with US presidents who are not natural allies. In the 1960s, the then Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson worked closely with Lyndon B. Johnson. While he denied the request to send British troops to Vietnam, he did manage to maintain some closeness, and succeeded in maintaining US support for the pound sterling, which was needed at the time. Similarly, Tony Blair was not, on the surface, a close ideological match with George W. Bush. But he did cozy up to Bush, and the two are often used as the go-to example of the special relationship, both the positive and the negative aspects of it. More than 9 months into his term, Keir Starmer seems as though he's intending to continue this tradition. In his first meeting with Trump at the White House, Starmer went to pains to try and strike up a close working relationship. Alongside some classic flattery and a bit of soft parenting, Starmer presented Trump with an invitation from the King for a second state visit to the UK, a first for a US president. Part of the hope was that, if Starmer could foster a close working relationship, he'd be able to both avoid Trump's tariffs and get his alignment on international issues, such as Ukraine and his Chagos Islands deal. In the days that followed, the British press reacted jubilantly. Starmer's trip was a massive success. Trump spoke fondly of both the UK and of Starmer personally, and it appeared as though Starmer could indeed get special treatment from the president. However, things unfortunately aren't that simple. While there have been signs that Trump might go soft on the UK in a lot of areas, Trump hasn't actually yet shown this. So in this video, we're going to have a look a bit deeper and ultimately assess whether Starmer's Trump strategy is actually working. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. As we mentioned in the intro, there are essentially 3 areas of cooperation Starmer was hoping to get from Trump: on Chagos, on Ukraine, and on tariffs. We'll look at each of these in turn. On Chagos, it seems that Starmer has achieved something of a victory already. Now, the proposed deal is one that Starmer has been particularly keen on, despite opposition at home. Essentially, it gives the Chagos Islands to Mauritius, with the UK leasing back its military bases at a cost to the British taxpayer. The lease lasts 99 years, with an option to extend another 40. Trump's approval was essential for the deal to succeed. Starmer had given Trump veto rights, as the deal would likely have security implications for the US. At their meeting in the Oval Office, Trump praised the deal, saying he and Starmer were, quote, "going to have some discussions about that very soon, and I have a feeling it's going to work out very well." He added, "That's a long time, and I think we'll be inclined to go along with your country." It seemed that even on the day of the Oval Office meeting, Starmer was getting results. However, when it came to Ukraine, it doesn't seem that Starmer has been all that successful. Only a day after his meeting with Trump held a bilateral meeting with Ukrainian President Zelensky, which infamously ended in a public meltdown and a severe deterioration of the US-Ukraine relationship. Starmer had been hoping to convince Trump that his plan, to back up any Ukraine peace deal with a reassurance force at least partly made up of British troops, was the right one. Clearly, this would also require some sort of peace deal to be agreed to. The meltdown didn't help this, and Starmer has so far been unable to convince Trump of his plan. In fact, Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff went as far as suggesting that Starmer's plan was a posture and a pose, and that the UK's plan was based on the simplistic notion that the PM and other leaders have got to be like Winston Churchill. Ultimately, not much has happened with Ukraine since Starmer's meeting, and it seems that, despite his reportedly solid relationship with Trump, very little progress has actually been made towards a lasting peace, let alone one that sees the UK lead a reassurance force in Ukraine. When it comes to tariffs, the results look a little more mixed. It seems that this was probably the area that Starmer felt the most optimistic about achieving cooperation on. Clearly, a lot of Trump's actions as president are based on his personal relationships with world leaders. Think back to his actions with Zelensky in the Oval Office, and his historic admiration for Putin. Becoming close with Trump, it was reasoned, was the best way to get him to drop any potential tariffs. And to be fair, there was evidence immediately after the Oval Office meeting that Trump might not impose tariffs on the UK, with Trump stating that Starmer was working hard, I'll tell you that. He earned whatever the hell they pay him over there, and saying that there was a very good chance of a trade deal where tariffs wouldn't be necessary. No such trade deal came to fruition though, and the UK was slapped with a 10% tariff last week on so-called Liberation Day. Now, obviously, it's worth pointing out that this was the lowest tariff imposed on any country, and was notably lower than the 20% tariff put on the EU. However, just because they were lower than other countries, that isn't to say that they won't have a significant impact on the British economy. The tariffs threaten thousands of jobs and could potentially set the Chancellor's battle for growth back yet again, prompting discussion in the media about whether she will have to raise taxes at the next budget. Despite Trump's claims that Starmer was very happy about how he treated them on tariffs, it seems that this probably isn't the case. Government insiders told Bloomberg that they were frustrated Trump had gone cold on the idea of signing an economic agreement that allowed free trade between the two countries. This is likely a particularly sore spot for the UK government, who've appeared close to getting a deal signed, which would reportedly include cutting a tax on Silicon Valley tech giants, lowering tariffs on US agricultural imports, and implementing a light-touch approach to AI. However, that's not to say that it won't happen in the near future, nor that Starmer's Trump plan isn't working. Writing for the Telegraph on Saturday, Starmer explained that the immediate priority is to keep calm and fight for the best deal. Essentially, he seems to be still holding out hope that he'll be able to get the economic deal with the US over the line, and that the tariffs will ultimately be dropped. In fact, if he is able to do this, there's an argument that it could make the UK a particularly attractive destination for international investment, something the UK desperately needs. Not only would this vindicate Starmer's approach to Trump, but it would bolster his position domestically. All he needs then is to actually finalise the deal. This story, like much of the news, is worth paying attention to in the weeks ahead, because with geopolitics in flux and Trump throwing the international order up in the air, there's a lot to keep an eye on. Every day, we're faced with weird headlines, from Musk declaring anyone who looks at him the wrong way a terrorist, to Trump declaring war on Jupiter to try and regain some extraterrestrial allies. Okay, that one wasn't real, but we do dive deep into the weird world of US politics in our series WTF USA. That's our show where we take big moments from culture and social media and try to explain the political implications of, say, Musk running around trying to put out Tesla fires. Unlike some of our other serious videos, the tone of WTF USA is more lighthearted and takes something of an irreverent look at what's going on. If you're interested, WTF USA can be found exclusively on Nebula. Nebula is also the home to other incredible original content from your favourite creators, like Real Life Law's series War Room. Given how much conflict and geopolitical disagreement there is right now, it's hard to stay on top of everything that's happening. So the show attempts to get you up to speed every month, explaining everything that you've missed and helping you feel more informed. If you didn't know, Nebula is an independent, creator-owned streaming platform that specializes in thoughtful content, from creators like Real Life Law, Wendover Productions, Legal Eagle, and Neo. It's not just WTF USA either. You can also watch every normal TLDR video on Nebula ad-free, and in some instances before they land on YouTube. If you're not a member already, click the link in the description to get 40% off. That's just $36 for a year, or $3 a month. So take the news a little less seriously and check out WTF only on Nebula.